Was a very intriguing week last week as I covered the Penong races on Saturday. I got to see the ecstasy of changes to football competitions and where clubs are going. It was intriguing to see the difference in the feelings amongst people from the various different clubs that have been affected in the Far West, Midwest and in some degree Great Flinders and Eastern Eyre parts of the Eyre Peninsula. And to cover off on it, on Monday I saw the feeling of scorn as folk from around Woodna and Warramboo and Kynecutter who formed the Central Eyre United Football Club could pick up amongst their folk a sense of, it was something we had to do, the pain of which we're going through, but we're looking to the future. And then to go through clubs like the Western Districts Football Club and how that club is in effect in no man's land geographically, and how that's precipitated discussions with Elliston to try and play football somewhere. And I guess the frustration that the circumstances have unfolded the way they have this year rather than in 12 months' time when maybe they and Elliston were more likely to be looking at how they could salvage the circumstances of their league, if that league indeed was to be broken up. And in effect, that's now what has occurred because the Wirrala and the West Coast Hawks clubs both voted at separate meetings to join what is now going to be known as the Western Eyre, part of the Eyre Peninsula zone of football, which is now brought forward from 2022 to 2021 effectively, if indeed that is voted by the SANFL Community Football League. Now, I suspect, given my conversations at the Penong races, that the overwhelming feeling amongst both the two clubs joining and the four clubs that are in the current Far West Football League is one of excitement, at least amongst players and amongst administrators of the game that I've spoken to. But you can't get away from the breakup of the Midwest Football League and the pain that is certainly going to cause for many, both in travel terms to get to sport, in terms of history, and in terms of just the facilities that people have worked so hard and planted crops and cleaned and done all the things that one would do to keep their towns and their club facilities alive, and yet they find themselves where they are. Some will say, well, it's natural attrition, it's part of the process, the changing of the guard and the circumstances that demographically things have changed. But I think there's a point here where we should have some compassion for those that are involved. One should never gloat about something that comes their way in a success context, and not to say that Eastern Eyre or Great Flinders or Far West in that category, but I'm merely suggesting here that when there's a pain in a breakup and you become involved purely as an observer, you can see that the individual clubs involved in that breakup have certainly had a lot of emotion in this last 2 weeks, and I've certainly been able to feel that reflection of that emotion in my past 7 days on the road across that part of the world.